So Nickelodeon has announced the new Avatar series, and the Korra
Okay.
slander continues because now
Is
apparently the
this?
Avatar is no longer heralded as the savior of humanity, but rather its destroyer.
I'm gonna ask a question here. Is this the blue people or is this the anime?
No, this is the good Avatar,
Yeah, this is the actual Avatar.
So
the last
Aang.
Airbender Avatar.
Okay. I
So
don't
I
know
don't know.
much
And
about either.
did you? Okay, so did you never watch the? Really, you need to watch. You should watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. Avatar: The Legend of
I have
Korra
heard that
is
before.
okay. It's not. It's not nearly as good as The
It
Last
it would
Airbender.
have been good if Nickelodeon actually, didn't say at the end of each season that they weren't going to get renewed.
Yeah, honestly, for all of Korra's faults, and she gets a lot of flack, and I think it's a lot of it is really undeserved because that series was really screwed over by Nintendo, or not Nintendo, by
Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, because like at the end, like towards the end of every production of every season, they were told that they weren't going to get renewed for the next season, so they had to wrap up all their plot lines, and then they were renewed like after it was like the first season was a success, and they had to like come up with a whole new storyline. It's
So
trash.
Korra is the avatar after Aang, who is beloved, and Korra rubs some people the wrong way. But overall, like it ended well. She did her avatar duty. But apparently, and so now the new series will be following the next avatar in the succession. And apparently, whatever Korra did in the tail end of her life before passing sullied the name of the avatar to the point where now they're a figure that is hated.
I why would they do this?
I don't know. Like,
Drama?
I don't know. The thing I don't understand is that it's no secret that within the community, Korra is a divisive topic. Why
Why?
would you then make the next iteration of the like? Why would you have her cause more harm and continue to be just as divisive?
It,
Okay, so
it
why is she divisive?
like, and how are they going
She's
to
divisive.
go ahead?
Go ahead, Asher.
Like, and how are they going to rationalize like why she's hated, and none of the rest of the avatars are, even though they're just as bad. Like Roku let a genocide happen.
Because he didn't want to. Because he didn't want to tell his friend no. Because he didn't want to stop his friend.
Yeah,
Like, not super great stuff. So the reason that Korra is divisive is because Korra is a very strong female character, and she makes it very known. Korra is also kind of a screw up to the point where a lot of her big moments come more from like her winning by some trick rather than like a mastery of her avatar abilities and stuff like that. It's fixed because there's 4 seasons of Legend of Korra, and season 3 and 4, that's the only time where they actually knew they were going to get renewed. So there's a cohesive story between those two, and there's a lot of like um character development and stuff within Korra herself. But the first 2 seasons, she is rough. She's rough, and the other reason she's divisive is within the lore. The Avatar is reincarnated when the last Avatar dies. During their reincarnated self, they can communicate with all the other past avatars. until Korra. Korra allowed herself basically to be killed. And because she was killed and then brought back, it severed the connection that the Avatar has with all of the past iterations. So, like, some of the hate that Korra gets is unwarranted, and is just mad people being mad. Some of it is well founded. Like she's not the best Avatar, and she did irrevocably change how the Avatar functions because they can't talk to their past selves anymore. But on the whole, she wasn't awful. But now apparently she was the destroyer of humanity. So who can really say now?
But how? That's
that
like
is what they have been decidingly mum about.
it's frustrating. Because I used to love this. I used to love the show, and then Korra happened, and I didn't quite like the show.
Yeah, I mean, Korra it was rough, especially second season. Second season Korra, where it ended with basically a kaiju fight.
Yeah, with giant Korra and sky laser beams.
Yeah, and sky laser beams, like not great, not great.
And like the first season was terrible because they wasted Amon's character.
Yeah,
Just wasted his like villain arc.
they wasted his villain arc, and another thing that I will say about the Legend of Korra that doesn't do it any favors is the fact that its supporting cast isn't as strong.
Yeah. Like they kind of went like we have to have these character archetypes, so let's make an archetype.
Yeah, and they don't have personalities really. Like I can't even remember what is it. It's Mako, Bolin, and Asumi.
Yeah.
Asumi. So like, Mako is the kind of like the Zuko stand-in. Bolin is no Toph. Bolin is no Toph.
Bolin, I think, is the stand-in for what's his face? Sokka, yeah.
But also, like, he's the Earthbender, and like if you're comparing him to the Earthbender of the last Team Avatar, which is Toph, what are we talking about here?
I am the greatest Earthbender ever, and don't you dunderheads ever forget that.
Also, like, Toph is also one of the greatest characters to ever be put to screen.
Yeah.
Like,
she technically has a better character arc than Aang.
yeah. Not only does she have a better character arc than Aang, she also, like, you want to talk about, like, the way to do representation of a disabled character. Like, she's blind. But, like, it doesn't stop her. And, like, and they even, like, she even makes jokes about, like, some of the best jokes in that series are the blind jokes that Toph makes.
Yeah, just the her waving her hand in front of her face like she can't, like, because she can't see, and because she's like, oh, let me take a look at that.
Sokka coming up to her and being like, Toph, what is this? And showing her a wanted poster. And she's like, I don't know. I can't see. How are you people not getting this?
Or when they were like looking for the library in the desert while they were flying around Nappa, and she's like, there it is.
Oh yeah, I actually saw part of that episode recently. In fact,
you should
I
really
think that
watch
may be
that.
the majority that I've ever actually seen from it.
You should watch it. It's quite good.
It's been on my list of things to check out, but it's a long list and there's a hell of a backlog. So, but yeah, it's I've been meaning to check it out at some point.
But I'll say this. This is not a show that you check out at some point. This show is life altering. Like, you will come out of that show, watching that show, and the experience will have improved you as a person.
And you gotta watch the animated version. Don't watch the stupid Netflix live action version because no matter what anybody says, it's a kind of a bad adaptation.
It's not great.
I
It's not.
didn't know there was a live action
There's
adaptation.
two. Well, there's technically one,
Yeah,
but we don't talk about the other one.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't talk about the other one.
Is this like the Bleach live action we don't talk about?
The other one is it's too painful. And speaking of pain, welcome to another episode of today's theme. If you're joining us here for the first time, help us out and give us a little hit that subscribe button down there. We would really appreciate it. I am your host, Mara. Joining me as always is Asher Dales
Ew.
and Lostronaut.
Hello.
Speaking
And
of
today's
jamming it in
theme-
there,
Yeah, speaking of jamming it in there, today's theme is pain, injuries. What's the word? Accidents. The unfortunate things that happen to our body,
like jamming a nail into your shoulder with a board.
like jamming a nail into your shoulder. Which, by the way, you did have a tetanus shot after that, right?
Oh, I already had a tetanus shot from another accident before that.
I see.
I didn't need another one. I didn't need a fresh one. I remembered the accident before that, and when I got the tetanus shot for that one. But yeah,
I mean, how many of those do you need to build up in your bloodstream before you're immune to tetanus?
I was definitely the Russian meme of in Soviet Russia, board nails you.
So, like, did the board, like, was it precariously placed above you and it just, like, fell? And
I had it leaning up against something, and I was like tearing apart like a part of a greenhouse, and I just had this board laying like propped up, and I guess I was an idiot and propped it up against the wrong thing, and it just fell over and nailed itself to my shoulder.
this is like a Home Alone-esque booby trap here.
Basically,
Like, you're a wet bandit. Like,
yeah. The board was stuck to me. There was like a 2x8 stuck into my arm, like
oh
nailed
my
to
God,
my arm.
do you pull it out or do you leave it in?
I pulled it out. Of course, I
I don't
pulled
think
it
you're
out.
supposed to do that. I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it. It wasn't. It wasn't like a big nail. It was just like a nail. Like didn't hit anything vital. I pulled it out. It didn't like bleed all that much. I picked all the little rust parts out of it, cleaned it up, and
Really? Bleed that
went about
much?
my. What's that?
It didn't bleed that much?
No.
Huh.
Yeah, it just like
How long was the nail?
I don't know,
How far did it go into your skin?
couple inches.
Yeah, that's all you need.
And like nailed itself to my arm, pulled it out, didn't really bleed, so I was like, that's fine. Picked out the little rust pieces, washed it out, and went, oh, time to get back to work.
Hey.
Yeah. So one of the problems with like for instance, a nail puncture or like for instance, like cat or dog bites in a lot of cases, is because they're long, deep punctures. They're almost impossible to clean real well.
Yeah, I'm still here. I would have gone to the doctor if it would have gotten infected. It was fine. I had insurance.
Like, I was just like, it's fine. Just what's a little rust between bodies? Come on.
The amount of injuries I've had where I should have probably gone to at least a doctor or urgent care, I just haven't.
I mean, yeah, you and I think we're talking about this a little earlier, and the old I used to keep super glue, shop towels, and duct tape in my toolbox just in case I needed one or all three.
You would not close your wounds with super glue, would you?
Oh yeah.
That's what it was originally designed for.
What is wrong with the two of you?
What do you mean?
You can't use super glue to close your wounds.
You literally can.
You absolutely can, and I have.
It's the super glue suture.
more than once.
How is it not
Much more than
toxic?
once, actually.
How are you not making yourself sick from some chemical? It
Because
can't be
I
good to get
mean,
into your bloodstream.
because
okay,
cyclonocylic.
okay, so
Because
continue.
as far as I know, cyclonocylic acid is sterile, which is just what superglue is.
So that was during its development, that was one of its intended features. And actually there is a very similar, it is admittedly a more skin safe design, but there is a liquid bandage, which is essentially just a slightly tweaked version
Yes. No.
used
Okay.
for the
Now,
exact same thing.
My bone of contention here is not the use of a liquid I'm going to say, for lack of a better word, adhesive to stem bleeding. My problem, my bone of contention, is that you're using something that was not designed to go into your bloodstream.
You don't put it in the wound. You
How are you?
like a suture. You pinch the wound
Yeah.
closed, and you glue the
Mm-hmm.
wound together. It's not like you're
Mm-hmm.
butting like two pieces
Oh
of
my
wood
God.
together. You're using like a surface action to hold it together.
I don't like it.
It's not. I don't know. It's the good old Band-Aid.
So what are you using? Electrical tape as bandages?
Electrical tape, duct tape,
And that's what I have in my box. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Electrical duct, sometimes medical tape,
sometimes painter's tape.
shop towels,
It-
clean shop towels, even.
First aid kits are not expensive.
No, they're not. But I have blue shop towels on hand.
But yeah, I don't like carry around a first aid kit wherever I go. I should.
You should. Have one in your car.
And
I
you know what?
have 3 separate first aid kits. They're for camping. Thank you very much.
And you have to specifically find first aid kits that have suture sets in them, and then have to know how to suture.
Did I ever tell you guys about the time I split my head open and had to get sutures?
No, I don't think
Yeah.
you did.
So I was in the apartment that I'm in now, and it was after a night of raiding in WoW. I forget exactly what we had done, but I was feeling good. I was feeling, it was a good night. It was a successful night. So I got off the Discord call. I got out from behind my desk and I started going over to the bathroom to do my nightly routine. And I am known on occasion when I'm happy to skip a little. So I did a little skip as I was going to the bathroom.
Hop, skipped, and
My
jumped your way
apartment-
right to the hospital.
Well, my apartment.
Did you give yourself a Leroy Jenkins?
So my ceiling, the part of it that leads into the bathroom is lower than the rest of the ceiling. And wouldn't you know it, right where I skipped is where the corner of that, lower area is. So I pretty much launched myself full velocity into the corner of the ceiling, splitting my head open at about 1:30 in the morning. I didn't lose
Of course, it's got to
consciousness.
be like 1:30 in the morning.
Of course.
Yeah, right. I didn't lose consciousness. I remember instantly hitting the ground and just like grabbing my head and being like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, what happened?" And then my head felt really, really warm. And it just so happens that where I landed, that's the hallway to my bathroom is where I have my mirror, my big dressing mirror. So I get up off my knees and stand up and look in the mirror, and I look like a scene out of Carrie. There is just blood pouring down my
Head
face.
and face wounds bleed so much.
I scream and run to the bathroom and start washing the blood away from like my face, my head. It is pouring out of my skull. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. I end up driving myself to the hospital, right? I go into the emergency room. They say, the woman behind the counter does not look up at me. Does not look up. It's just name, starts doing the intake. She goes, reason for being here. I go, by the way, there's blood trickling down my forehead. I go, the massive wound in my skull. And at this point, she looks up at me and sees the blood coming down my face and screams. I ask her how long of a wait it's going to be. She tells me about 4 or 5 hours. I had to be at work at 9 a.m. So I'm like, all right, never mind. Like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna go back home. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I can't wait. She's like, okay. She gives me an abdominal gauze pad for the bleeding. And I drive my way back home. I get home and I stay up for like another hour or two because, I'm sure I had a concussion. You're not supposed to sleep.
Actually, they changed that.
Yeah, they changed
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, with a brain injury like that, the best idea is rest. Avoid screens, but rest is one of the best things for it, if I remember correctly. And Asher, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's just like it doesn't like it's not like it's the best thing for it. It's just like it doesn't matter, and like going to sleep is just not like
it's a time machine.
yeah. It's basically just a time machine, and your brain just like does its thing anyways. It's like the concussion doesn't go away miraculously after like 8 hours, and then you can just go to bed.
I mean, that's what I figured. Like, I figured I'd be fine to sleep, but I stayed up a little bit, and I didn't want to lay my head down because massive gaping wound.
Yeah,
blood. So I grabbed a headband and took one of the abdominal pads, put it on the top of my head, and then strapped it down with the headband.
I was wondering if you were going to do like the old timey toothache, wrap the ice pack to your face.
Exactly what I looked like. That's exactly what I looked like. And I slept sitting up. I wake up the next morning. Now, I would like to point out to you that this is about 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
While I was upset, I was not worried about my brain. I was not worried about my head. I was worried about what having such a massive gash in my skull was going to do to my hair.
Of course you were.
Yep.
So that's what I'm worried about.
Yep.
So I wake up the next morning. I get ready for work. My one of the housemates upstairs comes out and sees me leaving for work. He goes, "Hey, like, are you okay?" I'm like on the verge of tears. And I go, "No." I tell him what happened. He goes, "Well, let me take a look at it." So I had done my hair in such a way where like you couldn't really see it. So I show him my head. I move the hair away. He goes, "Oh no." He goes, "Girl, you're gonna need stitches." At the mention of stitches, I break down to crying and I run towards my car and go to work. I walk into the urgent care like 2 hours later, like choking back tears. The doctor, who apparently they don't do stitches at urgent cares, the doctor takes one look at me, sees what sorry shape I'm in, and is like, "Come on back, we'll see what we can do." And he stitches my head up.
That's interesting because I've gotten stitches at before they were urgent cares, they were like clinics.
Yeah, I've also gotten stitches there.
So I've gotten stitches at clinics because like we had to go for my work related injuries. I would have to go to like the insurance, like the workers' comp approved clinic, which is where I've had my single most painful injury. I put a 1 centimeter by like 3 centimeter shard of wood under a nail.
Oh.
Oh God.
I was just like reaching for a bag of fertilizer, and I guess I just brushed my finger up against the 2x4 that it was leaning against, and it just slid a split like a big old splinter under my nail. And
that makes my fingers itch.
And I didn't want to go to the clinic, So we were there with a pair of tweezers trying to pull it out.
Ah. Oh,
Oh my
that's
god!
And then we
that
Did
makes
you
my
get it
skin.
out?
no, we couldn't get it out because it was just soft enough. Like you couldn't like every
Oh,
time you got a purchase on it, it would rip the little part of the splinter
Ah,
oh,
apart and
oh,
like it
oh!
would leave the rest of it there. So I had to get
Asher, you're gonna have. God. Oh god, I hate this.
so then I
I
had
just reminded. Go ahead. Go
so I,
ahead.
oh so I went to the clinic to get it taken care of and I get there and the receptionist goes, "You're going to have to wait. The doctor went to lunch." And I thought
oh.
it was, okay, he'll be gone for maybe another half an hour. Unbeknownst to
Yeah.
me, he took an hour lunch and he had just started when I got there.
Oh.
So I was
Oh
sitting in the
wow.
waiting room, like biting my finger, punching myself, trying to make the pain go anywhere but the nail. And they gave me a digital block. And like they finally see me, and the doctor goes, "Do you want a digital block?" And I go, "Oh God, yes, please." And then they gave me the two little injections right around the nerve for the finger. This is on my right, my dominant hand ring finger.
Hmm.
And so they
Oh,
put the two little injections of Novocaine into the right next to the nerve, and like almost instantly, I couldn't feel my finger. It was the best relief I've ever felt. And they cut away the nail to access the splinter, pulled it out, and they got it done in like 5 minutes. From me going back to me like leaving, it was like 5 minutes.
oh, oh.
And then I got out of work and went bowling. I do
You
dumb
got out
things.
of work and went bowling.
Yeah, I had leagues.
I mean, I broke my toe and then worked a 60-hour shift over a weekend on my feet.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, like, because like even if you go to the doctor for a broken toe, they're not gonna do
Oh, there's nothing.
anything.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
nothing you could do for it. Luckily, I owned steel toe boots anyway, and they're like, yeah, that's kind of that'll give them a little bit of protection. Yeah, that's probably your best bet.
Yeah, like I remember when I broke my nose, and it was like, there's no point in going. The doctor's not gonna do anything. Like,
What's the doctor do? Say that sucks and send you on your way?
maybe give me some painkillers. Like,
Yeah, for the nose, like it depends on how bad the break is, really. They might have to reset it. But that's about it.
yeah, I mean that's about it. I mean, same with breaking a finger. Like they don't, I guess they can splint it. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. It's really unless like it's one of the couple of the little toes, you really can't splint toes effectively because that's
No.
kind of where a lot of your balance comes from.
Yeah. I heard once, I don't know if this is true, but if you lose your big toe, it's very difficult for you to walk. Apparently, the big toe is real integral
It's
to
real important.
walking.
Yeah,
You
that was the one I broke.
you learn how to get around it, but
Yeah, I would imagine so, that you would learn how to get around it, but apparently it's rough to do. And speaking as someone who has had to teach herself how to walk again, I could see it being a problem. I little fun little postscript to me splitting my head open. Obviously I had to clean up all the blood that was everywhere, all over my room and my bathroom. But I did leave the blood stain on the corner and the little bit of ceiling that I hit as a
As a-
reminder to
as a memento to the
never do that
incident.
again. And for anybody worrying, my hair survived and looks wonderful.
Did they have to shave the spot?
No, they didn't have to shave the
yeah.
spot.
Oh, you lucky
I-
bitch.
I told the doctor, like, because like I wasn't out at work, so like I was dressed a little bit more. I was dressed like more like boy mode. I told the doctor, I was like, I'm trans, like I I'm so worried about my hair. Like, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right, well, I'm going to make the stitches really tight. Like, we won't. He's like, I don't have to shave your head because I was afraid they were going to have to shave my head. He's like, we don't have to shave your head. I'm going to make the stitches really tight. He's like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's like, all right.
So did you get like a free lift?
A what?
Or like a free lift? Like they just pull it back a little bit more?
A free facelift?
Yeah, just
You stitch your
Yeah, while
face
you're up
up.
there, grab a whole bunch of this extra saggy skin.
Ah,
No, I don't need a facelift, thank you.
just trying to think of what other injuries, notable injuries I've had. Oh, my really dumb injury. Um, I coughed and herniated a disc in my back.
I'm sorry, what?
I coughed and a disc slipped. It wasn't even like one of like the really bad like racking coughs. It was just a throat clearer.
Like a little like
Yeah, just like a and I guess I had just been like this happened at the end of the workday and I guess I had just been like overworking my core muscles and my core muscles just went I think we're done for the day. And the second most excruciating pain in my life happened. And I couldn't fall to the floor because it happened while I was peeing.
wait, I have a question. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you stay on target?
Yes.
Impressive. Impressive.
And then I instead of, calling for help or anything, I just drove myself to the hospital.
With a slip disc?
Yep.
How was that car ride?
Awful.
I bet. Bet you wish you had replaced your suspension or something, huh?
It was in the SUV, so it wasn't like too bad.
Oh, it wasn't in a minivan with like 9 other adults.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so they took me in at the hospital and took me back for an X-ray and went, nothing we could do. Have some Vicodins
Yeah.
and some muscle relaxers.
Here you go.
Yeah, try
Vicodin.
not to use it. It'll
Oh, that was terrible. Like it was great when I was on the Vicodins, and then like when I was like done, I was like, oh, I'm just not gonna use these anymore. It was like the withdrawal symptoms were awful. Now I see why House is just like taking painkillers all the time.
I was
And the
talking
crazy
about
thing is
not using your back. Like,
from what I've
here,
heard,
take
like,
these. Try not to use your back for a couple days.
Mhm.
it really takes a matter of days on painkillers and then
Yeah.
like stopping them to
Yeah.
feel withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, so I definitely got the note from the hospital to take to my job, and like he needs a couple days off. His back no work. Give
His
time
back no worky.
Give time off.
When I was 16, I got stung by a bee for the first time. And it happened to me while I was at work. I worked at a golf course at the time. And I got stung by a bee. And my boss looked at me and was like, are you allergic to bees? And I was like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Ask me in 10 minutes.
I had the same exact problem. I got stung and I was like, I don't actually know if I'm allergic. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I didn't know I was
Spoiler
allergic.
alert, I was fine.
I didn't know I was allergic to ground hornets until I got stung by one. And
That's
only
a weird one to be allergic
only
to.
ground hornets. Only ground hornets. Because
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that can happen a lot, right? It's like you just kind of don't know you're allergic to it until you have like a reaction.
So yeah, being an elder millennial, technically, we grew up with the same mentality as like Gen Z of we didn't have the internet. We didn't really have video games. We were thrown outside and told, go find something to do. So my friends and I had the brilliant idea of playing paper bag armor knight with the wiffle ball bats and poking yellow jacket nests. You muted.
I'm
thing.
sorry, you were poking. No, I was coughing. You were poking. So you did this to yourself.
Oh yes.
I see.
So
I see.
the yellow jacket, we were stung by yellow jackets, and like that was nothing. And then we did that to ourselves. But the ground hornets, I was just walking along one day, and I guess I stepped on their nest, and they came out and stung me. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I got stung. Oh, no big deal. It sucks. It's gonna itch. It's gonna hurt. No big deal. Then I go inside, and my mom goes, "What happened to you? Your nose is swelling up." And that was when I found out I was allergic to ground hornets.
Jeez. Have you ever been bitten by a horsefly?
Yes, they suck. That sucks.
Oh my god. I was really young when it happened. We were at my parents was like the 1 year that they didn't take us to the damn Jersey Shore. We went to a horse ranch thing and stayed there for a week. So we rode horses every day. It was great. And I remember on one of the last days, they were, helping us dismount from the horses, and I was next up in line. And my father says he watched this whole thing happen. He saw this giant bug land on the back of my neck. And then like 5 seconds later, I screamed bloody murder and slapped the back of my neck. And I felt it. I felt it leave my neck. It felt like a rock. It felt like I had slapped a rock with my hand. And then my father watched it fly off my neck. He said it was huge. And I had a welt on the back of my neck for like a week. And it was like the size of a golf ball.
Yeah, it sucks.
I didn't know. I hadn't felt a sting like that again until I lived in Arizona and got bit by fire ants.
Ooh.
Those fuckers. Oh my God.
Luckily, I've never had that happen to me.
They, for something so tiny, it's like fire being injected into your skin.
Hence fire ants.
Hence fire ants. And like you don't even know it. Like you don't know when they're like crawling on you or anything, and then it just feels like acid. Oh my God, it's so painful. You can't walk anywhere barefoot because like they just get on you and then they just bite you, and it's the worst.
You ever see the movie Them?
No.
It's a bunch of mutated, radiated giant ants. It's an old 50s horror movie.
Ants are weird. Isn't there an ant called a bullet ant that makes you feel like you got shot
Yep.
when it bites you?
And then there's the botfly.
It's a botfly.
It carries a larva on it. So when it bites you, it injects the larva into you. And it eats its way out.
Oh. No, thank you. No, thank you. The second you said inject, no. I'm out. I don't do the ovipositor thing.
Oh no, it's not like an ovipositor. It's just like on the fly. And after it bites you, it like the little egg makes its way into you through the bite. And then it gestates, turns into a larva, and starts eating its way back out of you.
Ugh. Ugh. I once fractured my skull. Separate from me skipping into my ceiling.
Another head injury?
Yeah, another head injury. I headbutted vinyl siding, not thinking that vinyl siding is attached to concrete. So like I full on just headbutted this was vinyl siding, and just smacked my head into the concrete. And now to this day, if you run your hand along my forehead, there's like a ridge, like a little bump. It's like a little speed bump on my forehead from where I fractured it, and it healed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've picked up a couple concussions. One from ice skating. I was learning how to hockey stop. When I was going full speed and tried to hockey stop, and the edge caught, and I went headfirst into the dashers.
Oh, 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 oh! That must have hurt.
That was. It didn't really. I don't know if it hurt because I don't remember anything about it. I remember going to hockey stop, going towards the dashers, and then skating off of the rink. I don't remember what happened.
Mm.
There's also the time I fell off a pogo stick because the pogo stick bottom slipped. I remember it
Oh,
slipping.
that sounds painful.
I remember it slipping. I remember waking up. I don't remember anything in between.
When I was younger, I forget why. I was like maybe like 7 years old. But I lost my two front teeth because I was inside one of those little, like, like those like Playmobil, like plastic cars that we used to have as kids.
Yeah, the little tykes.
Yeah, the little tykes. Yeah, yeah. I was in one of those, and another kid was pushing me in it from behind. And there was like a bump in the sidewalk, and the car hit the bump. It toppled over, and my front teeth hit the concrete, and it knocked out my two front
You
teeth.
curb stomped yourself.
Basically, yeah. Actually, I didn't do it to myself. It was the jerk pushing me. I remember distinctly that I was screaming for them to stop because I was scared, which obviously was well warranted. Clearly,
Bah. What's a little bodily injury?
I had a gap in my two front teeth for years after that. I needed braces.
Nah.
Nothing will ever compare. The greatest pain I've ever felt in my entire life is easily when they had to reset my leg after the car accident. After they pulled me out of the car and they had to reset my femur.
Ooh.
And I'll never forget, I'm laying on the stretcher that they put me on after they pulled me out of the car. And I remember the EMT's head was above me. And he goes, "Hey, we're going to have to reset your leg before we send you to the hospital." I went, "Oh, okay. Is that going to hurt?" The guy looked me dead in my eyes. He went, "Oh, yeah." And like, when you ask a doctor if it's going to hurt, they always say no. So like, this guy's like telling me like, "Oh, yeah, it's going to hurt."
It'll just be a pinch.
And I remember laying on my back, and I feel hands grab my leg, which did not feel good. And then they count down from 3, and at 1, I felt pain like I had never and since have not ever felt in my life. I remember it being so painful that I wanted to cry, but crying would have taken time away from screaming. All I could do is just scream until the pain stopped. It was bad. And then once it was in the brace, didn't hurt anymore.
Yeah. Well, once the bone is back where it's supposed to be.
Did not hurt. Did not hurt. Yeah, that was. When I think about it now, like I like laugh because like my brain refuses to focus on just how painful that was.
It's great that the brain doesn't remember pain.
Right?
Of all the wonderful things that the brain does, not remembering pain is one of the best.
Like brain's like, no, you don't, you don't need to think about that. Let's keep it light. Let's keep it light, bitch.
Lost you've been quiet over there.
Yeah, I've been letting Mara tell her story.
This didn't happen to me, but when I was living in Arizona, I knew a guy who, when he was a kid, he grew up in Boston. So one of the things that they would do is when the lakes would freeze over, they would all go out and
Yeah.
mess around on the lake.
Mhm.
One of the games they would play is one of them would grab a rope, and one would get on their knees and get swung around on the rope, and then let go, and you go flying across the ice on your knees. The guy I knew did this. He let go of the rope. He's sliding across on the ice. Well, the ice ahead of him, unbeknownst to him, was about an inch and a half higher
Ooh.
than the ice he was knee sliding on. He hit and
Oh,
immediately dislocated both of his kneecaps. They went up into his thighs.
Oh. Oh, that's a torn patella tendon too.
oh.
Because I've dislocated my knee before. I was breakdancing and landed wrong, and I landed straight on my knee, and my kneecap rocketed around to the other side of my knee.
Oh, I see what you did wrong. When you pop and lock it, you're supposed to pop it and then lock it. You didn't lock it. You just popped it.
I popped it, and then I popped it back in because I didn't feel like going to the doctor or the hospital. So I just took my palm, figured out which way the kneecap went around my knee, and just slammed it back home.
I did that with one of my thumbs. I accidentally dislocated it picking something up, and it was sort of a weird shape. And like when the weight kind of hit, it kind of did it perfectly, where it just dislocated the last knuckle on my thumb. And this was at work, and this was not the kind of place that you went to the hospital if you dislocated a finger, apparently. So I just put it back in and tried to use that hand a little less that day. That thumb still will it'll lock up in the middle of the night, and as a reflex, like how you if you crack your knuckles, like sometimes you just do it as a reflex, like the joint is stiff or something,
Yeah.
and you crack. Yeah. So I have woken up because the sound of that crack is so loud that it has woken me from sleep.
Yeah, I've my pinkies dislocate when I try and crack them.
Oh,
That was an odd
so
that was an odd feeling the first time it happened.
so if you want to talk about dislocations, I
What a lead
I
in.
dislocated my right shoulder for 12 hours. This was another I was at work story.
It seems like a lot of our injuries are I was at work.
I've worked for some not great companies.
Where OSHA was more of a
Um,
suggestion than a requirement.
OSHA,
OSHA was
never heard of her.
Yeah, OSHA was where they would drop you if you filed a report in most cases. Drop you straight in the OSHA. They'd call it an OSHA dump. Anyway, so it was a December morning, and like I drove a truck for a concrete forms company. So I'd drive the truck out to the job site, and the crew there would unload typically they would unload the truck, set up the concrete forms, they'd pour the foundations or whatever, and then once it was dry, we'd come back, we'd take the forms off and load them back onto the truck, and then we'd be done with that site. And this was the kind of job where you were only on the job site as long as you had to be. So once you were done, you were done. You could leave for the day. Now, the crew I worked with loved me because, unlike a lot of the other drivers, I would get out of the truck and help unload and load the truck. I'd move the forms because, again, the sooner we're all done, the sooner we can all go home. And I like all the dudes I worked with. They were super cool guys. Apparently, they liked me over a lot of the drivers again, just because I would come and help them out. Um, and they would all show up in like one minivan, and it was like 9 or 10 dudes deep. In this like I think like a 1996 Plymouth minivan that holds maybe 6, 7 full size dudes, and they're there's one dude sitting on the floor next to the sliding door, and like they just like they would all carpool in. And there's relevance to this story because the as a driver for that truck, this was like an old GMC like half ton, and for me to get it into say fifth gear, I would have to lean into the passenger seat to reach over. Now I dislocated my right shoulder. I was helping unload the truck, and there was like a little bit of ice on the truck. So it had snowed the night before, and it must have been like ice as it was as it was transporting the site. We loaded the stuff up in the morning. There may have been some snow there, and then it just melted and refroze during the drive or something. And I didn't see it. And I had slipped on it, and just the way I caught myself, I must have dislocated my shoulder. So I wasn't able to drive the truck back to the shop. This was also the kind of place where it's like, okay, if he's not bleeding, just okay, he can sit in the truck, and once y'all are done, you can bring him back and drop him off at the hospital or whatever. We were like an hour or two away from the shop at the job site, and I lived not far from the shop. So, the call was just okay. Well, if he's not bleeding, he can hold tight for a couple hours. Just get the forms done, and then bring him back. So I climbed into the minivan with 10 other full size dudes, and it's just sardines. And it's like I said, it's a 2-hour drive back, and this is 5 p.m. I dislocated my shoulder at noon. Okay. So we decide that we're gonna stop off at a roadside, like a truck stop on the way back. We were on like a turnpike, so there was a bunch of stops. We stop off, and we get like I remember the poor girl at the Sbarro pizza. I ordered 2 slices. She looked at me, my shoulder quite clearly, like, okay, I could just about, and this isn't hyperbole, I could just about scratch my calf without bending over. My shoulder did not look like it was a functional part of it didn't look like it was on my body. My arm was about 6 inches longer than it should have been.
The good old ape arm length.
Yeah, and my arms are already long. So the poor girl looked at me, looked at my shoulder, looked at the order I just gave her. I just ordered 2 slices of pepperoni. She looked like she wanted to ask me if I was okay and wasn't sure if she could handle the answer. Oh. And, I felt so bad. So anyway, we order pizza. We pile back into the sardine van.
Before we get too far from this woman here, I would just like to say, I would bet any amount of money she probably tells this story to her friends to this day.
Oh, I was absolutely like a cryptid. I was absolutely like a random sighting. It's like
have I ever told you guys the day I met the elongated man?
So they we finished the trip back. They dropped me off my house, and as I'm walking in, I mentioned to my roommate, I'm like, hey, I think I might need to go to the hospital. First off, they dropped me off at my house, not the hospital. But it's like, hey, I think I might need to go to the hospital. And as they're trying, oh, why? What do you mean? And as they turn that around, and say, why? What do you mean? Like their jaw just falls open, because it's like a scene out of the like Return from the Body Snatchers or something, where it's just like point and scream. It was that apparently jarring that my shoulder was about 20 degrees south of the equator as far as where it should be. So they get me to the hospital. It's 7 p.m. by this point. Till I wait in the waiting room, and get checked in and get an epidural and get on the table and hear that particular pop crunch as they reset my shoulder back into its socket and then put me in an immobilizer for 3 months. Yeah, it was midnight. So my shoulder was out of the socket for almost exactly 12 hours. And to this day, I'll move wrong. I was driving a stick shift one day. I went to reach into my back seat to grab something like out of a backpack or something like I don't know, I had something back there that I needed. And my shoulder dislocated as I brought it over the passenger seat. That was a problem.
Yeah.
But it will just it'll dislocate and then the muscles will get real tense and it will kind of just pop back in. It's
fix the
it's
problem.
unsettling to watch, apparently. Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing is when it happens, my muscles is just like a natural reaction, just like tense up and it must just only possibly pop out of the socket. I mean, some people have been like, I've seen that happen and it's gross. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Must keep it in.
I don't mean to do it.
Now, I have a question.
It's not intentional.
I have a question.
That's a statement.
At no point did you think maybe I should, I don't know, like pop it back in myself? Because like that's doable.
No. In this case, it wasn't. When my arm shifted down, it kind of shifted down and rotated. So the ball joint of my shoulder was actually facing forward.
Okay.
And nobody saw a problem.
My shoulder, yeah, no, everybody saw a problem. You could see that from where my collarbone ended, I just sloped down. And my hand was constantly touching my knee, standing straight up.
Wow.
Yeah, so they actually, like I said, they had to give me an epidural to get it reset because they kind of had to. There was some finagling. They really had to move it around.
Finagling.
Yeah, they had to finagle the who's what's it. These are all medical terms. I'm a doctor.
Playing reverse operation there.
Oh man,
my nose did not light up red once.
Didn't have that module installed?
No.
Oh.
Have you guys ever thrown up blood?
No.
Yes.
I have.
It's terrible. Fun. It's just black.
Yeah. And it tastes awful.
Oh, it's horrible.
Not that vomit tastes good to begin, but like this is like, it's
worse.
Exceptionally bad.
I've pooped blood, but I haven't vomited blood.
Ooh.
That was when I had salmonella food poisoning.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
That's why I don't accept anything other than like E. coli or salmonella to be food, what people call food poisoning, when they just kind of feel sick to their stomach and have a little pukies, and not their intestinal linings trying to rip themselves out of your body. That's food poisoning.
I mean, those are both food poisoning. It's just varying levels of food poisoning.
Oh, I got a tummy ache. I'm pooping
One of those
blood.
is kind of a food inconvenience. The other one is like legitimate poisoning. And you can actually die from food poisoning.
And I went to the doctor and he was like, I mean, we could give you antibiotics, but probably not going to do anything. You just gotta tough it out.
I mean, they will dry you out pretty often, so.
Oh, that was probably the first or second most painful experience in my life. Not the board under the nail. The salmonella, because it felt like I was being. It felt like once it started, it felt like somebody stabbed me, left the knife in, and then every 5 minutes came by and twisted it. and then walked away, and then came back 5 minutes later and twisted it again. I didn't eat for a week.
Yeah, if you want to talk about one of the most painful experiences, so I had a surgery where it was actually supposed to be an outpatient surgery, and then there were some complications, and then I woke up in the recovery room at like midnight. This was not supposed to happen. So when they went to discharge me the next morning, the nurse that came, like, so, you know, because it was a surgery, I was pretty drugged up, and there's a whole other story about the anesthesia involved with this that maybe I'll tell another time. But the problem was there were two issues, and I feel like this may have been the same nurse. For one, when they I remember when they inserted the IV into my arm, they pushed through one of the valves because they said, "Oop, hit a wall or hit a door or something," and my arm swelled up to the point where I could not bend that arm. So the next morning, when they were going to discharge me, the nurse who went to remove my catheter did not fully deflate the ball, and I swear she was pull starting a damned lawnmower. I ended up halfway down the bed. I almost punched them. That I literally saw stars. I thought that was a myth. I literally saw stars. I could not think. The amount of sound in my skull was deafening. I experienced the Big Bang.
I don't know. The Big Bang Theory is even worse. Aha, TV joke.
I just never liked that show because it feels like nerd impersonation.
It's
like you could make that same show around any subculture, and the vaguely smart jokes that they're just physics jokes, and half of the people that laugh at them do not understand them anyway.
They're just laughing along with the laugh track.
Yeah, it could be done with literally any subculture.
It's not appreciating the subculture. It's making the subculture the subculture the joke.
Yep. Yep.
Which is kind of why I wanted the Young Sheldon show to just be the Georgie show. Because those keep coming up on my feed of just clips of Georgie when he was younger.
I'm trying to think if I've had any other incredibly painful moments in my life.
My hands bleed every winter.
That? Moisturize.
You have dry skin.
Moisturize.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help that I would spread salt with my bare hands.
Yeah.
Moisturize.
Yeah. After they start bleeding, I do moisturize. But it has to get to the point where they start bleeding.
Skin.
Yeah. But it has to bleed first.
Why does it have to bleed first?
Because I don't notice it otherwise. I don't pay attention.
It's not a problem until then.
On your hands every night before bed.
It's not a problem until it's a problem.
Oh my God.
I do not want to put lotion on my hands before I go to bed. I will rub my eyes in the middle of the night, and then I'll lotion in my eyes, and that just burns.
That sucks.
Okay, the lotion absorbs into your skin. After an hour or two, it's not going to still be on your hand.
Every lotion I have ever used I swear, has left like a greasy sheen that just does not wipe off.
Enough?
I don't know. Just it's been multiple different brands.
I'll bring you some lotion. I got a lotion for you. I actually have a hand lotion specifically. It's made out of lavender. It's really, really nice. I used to, back when I worked retail and I had to unpack a lot of boxes, my hands would get all flaky. Then like all the skin on my hands would just like peel off. And this lavender cream was the only thing that would really help it.
Uh,
I actually need a good skin care recommendation. I have some skin I want to keep
some
good
zero,
looking.
some zero W20
It's the largest organ in your body.
on your body,
On your body, in your body, whatever. Who
in your
cares?
body, in your body.
I would also like to point out, as my dermatologist told me, nothing looks better in your 50s than sunscreen in your 30s. Just saying.
I've never really put on a sunscreen, and I've went to the beach like every single year.
Okay, you're also not pasty white.
True. I just kind of get brown. I get golden brown.
You build up an immunity to the sun.
Now, that's not to say due to your darker skin you shouldn't wear sunscreen, because you should.
Yeah, I should, but I just never
But I don't think
worried
it's
about it.
quite the imperative. And with that, you have wasted another perfectly good hour listening to us here at today's theme. I hope it wasn't too painful for you. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, feel free to help us out. Drop down below and hit subscribe, put a like on the video, and hit the noti bell to be notified whenever we upload new stuff. Let us know some of your most painful things that have ever happened to you in your life down below in the comments. Thank you again for listening. I have been Mara.
I've been Asher.
I've been lost.
And we've
Life
been
is pain, cheese bags.
Life is pain.